There are invisible chains that don't bind the body but imprison the soul, and perhaps you were born to break them in this lifetime. Have you ever felt as though your breath depended on someone else's presence? As if, without that person by your side, you'd lose not only love, but your very identity. If these words resonate somewhere deep within you, know that you didn't arrive here by chance. The universe whispers through synchronicities, and perhaps this moment is exactly what your soul has been waiting for, to awaken from a sleep that may have lasted many lifetimes. Emotional dependence isn't just a psychological pattern that Freud so brilliantly analyzed through the lens of psychoanalysis. It's a karmic web woven over multiple incarnations, an echo of unfulfilled promises, incomplete loves, and wounds that the soul carries as invisible baggage from one life to another. Edgar Cayce, the psychic who accessed humanity's Akashic records, revealed that each current relationship mirrors ancient contracts made between souls, and that emotional dependence often arises when we try to resolve through a single person what should be resolved through our own spiritual evolution. Imagine for a moment that your soul is like an ancestral mirror, polished over millennia. When you feel you can't live without someone, when their every word dictates your emotional state, when your happiness fluctuates like a leaf in the wind according to the attention you receive, you're not just reliving patterns from this life, you're dancing a dance that began in other dimensions of time, perhaps in other lives where love was confused with possession, where surrender was twisted into submission, where the quest for completeness transformed into a ravenous hunger that is never satisfied. Freud taught us that much of our adult behavior echoes the dynamics of our childhood, but Cayce showed us that this childhood extends far beyond the first few years of our current existence. It stretches through the corridors of time, where in past lives you may have loved so intensely that you confused love with possession, or perhaps you were abandoned so abruptly that your soul engraved the belief that loving always risks being left behind, alone, in the emptiness of a pain that seems endless. Emotional dependence is, at its deepest core, the cry of a soul that has forgotten its own completeness. It's as if, at some point lost in the mists of time, you made a silent pact that you could only be happy through the eyes of another, that you could only feel loved when someone validated your existence, that you could only breathe peacefully when you were absolutely certain you wouldn't be abandoned. But here's the truth that few dare to see: that pact was made with fear, not with love. When you observe the relationships around you, can you perceive the signs? That person who compulsively checks their partner's phone isn't just being jealous. Their soul is reliving traumas of betrayals that may have happened in other lives. The one who can't make a decision without first consulting the other isn't just insecure, they're repeating a pattern where at some point, autonomy was punished with abandonment. The one who completely annuls themselves to please isn't just being loving, they're trying to fulfill a karmic contract where they believe they only deserve love when they're perfect in someone else's eyes. Spiritual masters have always taught us that we recognize in others what exists within ourselves, and Cayce went further. He said that we attract into our lives exactly the people and situations we need for our evolution. If you're experiencing emotional dependence, if you're feeling trapped in dynamics that drain your vital energy, know that this isn't a punishment, it's an invitation from your own soul to finally free yourself from patterns that no longer serve your growth. Healing doesn't begin when you manage to distance yourself from the person you're emotionally dependent on. Healing begins when you understand that this person is a sacred mirror, reflecting back to you aspects of your own soul that need to be seen, accepted, and transformed. Perhaps they came into your life so you could finally learn that true love doesn't diminish when it's unrequited, it expands. Perhaps they're there for you to discover that happiness can't be outsourced, that it springs from an inner garden that only you can cultivate. The signs are everywhere, waiting for you to develop eyes to see. How many times have you noticed that the relationships where you gave yourself most dependently were exactly those where you suffered the most? How many times have you realized that the more you tried to control the other person's affection, the more it slipped through your fingers like water? How many times have you felt you were living more in someone else's life than your own? These aren't coincidences. They're synchronicities carefully orchestrated by universal wisdom to awaken you to your own inner strength. Edgar Cayce frequently spoke of karmic attractions, Those encounters that seem predestined, where two people recognize each other instantly, where there's an overwhelming chemistry that seems to transcend logic. Often we interpret these intense connections as a sign that we've found our soulmate, our other half, the person who will finally complete us. But Casey warned us, not every intense attraction is a sign of spiritual compatibility. Sometimes, we're magnetically drawn to those people with whom we have outstanding karmic debts, unlearned lessons, patterns that need to be broken. Emotional dependence can be, paradoxically, one of life's greatest blessings in disguise. It forces us to look inward, to question our deepest beliefs about love, our self-worth, and our capacity for self-love. It's like a storm that cleanses the sky of our consciousness, removing the clouds of illusion so we can finally see the sun of our own inner divinity. If you've come this far, feeling each word resonate somewhere in your soul, it's because you're ready for a transformation that goes far beyond simply improving a relationship. You're being invited to a spiritual rebirth, to discover that the person you thought you needed to be complete was in fact only a catalyst for discovering your own completeness. And if you want to continue on this journey of awakening, if you want to receive more revelations that can illuminate the darkest corners of your soul, click that subscribe button on your screen. Hit the bell icon too, because the universe has a curious way of sending exactly the message we need at the right time, and you don't want to miss the next whisper that could completely change your perspective on love and yourself. Do it now, because your soul recognizes the truth when it finds it. Liberation from emotional dependence is a layered process, like peeling a celestial onion, where each layer removed reveals a deeper truth about who you truly are. Freud showed us that the unconscious mind holds memories and traumas that influence our present behavior, but Edgar Cayce expanded this vision to include soul memories. Those Akashic records where all the experiences of all the lives we've ever lived are recorded. When you feel that tightness in your chest imagining life without a certain person, when you feel like you'll die if they leave you, when your identity seems to melt away in the absence of their constant validation, you're accessing fears that go far beyond this current life. Perhaps in a past incarnation, you truly did die of sorrow when you were abandoned. Perhaps you lived in a time where depending on someone was literally a matter of physical survival. Perhaps you made vows of devotion that still echo in your current soul, creating confusion between spiritual love and emotional dependence. But here's the key that can unlock all the doors to your liberation. You are not your past wounds. You are not your ancestral fears. You are not the karmic contracts your soul signed when it didn't yet fully understand its own divinity. You are a spark of the Creator, an infinite consciousness temporarily playing the game of being human, and as such, you possess the power to rewrite any story, to heal any trauma, to transform any pattern that no longer serves your growth. The first profound revelation on the path to liberation is understanding that the person you feel dependent on is not your tormentor. They are your teacher. They are not your oppressor. They are your mirror. They are not the one who will complete you. They are the one who has come to show you where you still need to complete yourself. Every emotional trigger they awaken in you is a gift in disguise, pointing to a part of your soul that still needs healing, love, and integration. Observe the patterns. If you despair when they take a long time to respond to a message, your soul is revealing that it still carries the wound of abandonment. If you feel diminished when they show interest in other people, your soul is showing that it doesn't yet fully recognize its own worth. If you modify your personality to please them, your soul is signaling that it still believes it needs to be different from who it is to deserve love. Cayce always emphasized that the mind is the builder. Our thoughts and beliefs literally create our reality. If you believe you can't be happy without a certain person, if you believe your worth depends on their approval, if you believe that love is scarce and you need to cling with tooth and nail to what little you receive, then these beliefs become your invisible prison, and you attract exactly the situations that confirm these limitations. But what if you could rewrite these fundamental beliefs? What if you could plant seeds of a new reality in the fertile ground of your consciousness? What if you could choose, right now, to believe that you are worthy of unconditional love, that your happiness is your sacred responsibility, that true love flows abundantly from the universe, and you are a natural channel of this divine energy? Transformation begins with a simple, yet revolutionary act: taking full responsibility for your emotional life. This doesn't mean blaming yourself for the feelings that arise. It means recognizing that you have the power to choose how you respond to those feelings. When that wave of despair arises, because the person hasn't shown the affection you expected, instead of drowning in it, you can observe it as a temporary visitor in the house of your consciousness. Breathe deeply and ask your soul, what is this emotion trying to teach me? What limiting belief is it revealing? What old wound is it bringing to the surface to be finally healed? Treat your emotions as sacred messengers, not as enemies to be avoided. They carry precious information about the corners of your soul that still need light and love. Meditation becomes your most powerful ally in this process. Casey frequently recommended daily moments of silence and introspection, where we can connect with our inner wisdom. When you sit in silence and allow your mind to quiet, you begin to realize that there is a silent observer within you, a presence that doesn't change with emotional storms, that remains at peace even when everything around seems chaotic. This presence is your true self, your divine essence, the part of you that existed before all trauma and will continue to exist after all wounds are healed. When you learn to identify with this presence instead of your temporary moment, emotional dependence begins to lose its power over you. Imagine you are a deep, infinite ocean. The waves on the surface, your emotions, your fears, your desires, come and go, but the ocean remains. When you remember that you are the ocean, and not just the waves, you can maintain your inner peace even when emotional storms rage through your life. The second transformative revelation is understanding that true love, the love your soul deeply craves, cannot be found in any external person. It already exists within you, as an infinite wellspring waiting to be discovered. Every time you desperately seek love outside yourself, you are like someone who has a crystal clear well in their backyard, but goes begging for a few drops from their neighbors. Casey taught us that we are made in the image and likeness of the Creator, and if the Creator is pure love, then our essential nature is also pure love. Emotional dependence arises when we forget this fundamental truth and begin to believe that we are needy, incomplete beings who require something external to feel whole. But when you truly understand, not just intellectually, but in every cell of your body, in every fiber of your soul, that you are love, that you don't need to find love, because you are love incarnate, something extraordinary happens. You stop begging for emotional crumbs and begin offering banquets of unconditional love. This doesn't mean becoming cold or detached. On the contrary, it means loving so purely and freely that your love doesn't depend on reciprocation, doesn't demand a return, doesn't cling to specific outcomes. It's like the sun, which shines on everyone, regardless of receiving gratitude or recognition. The third revelation is that every relationship is an opportunity to practice unconditional love, starting with yourself. If you can't love yourself when you're alone, how can you expect someone else to fill that void? If you can't give yourself the respect, patience, and compassion you seek in others, how can you recognize and receive these qualities when they appear? The most important relationship in your life isn't with your romantic partner, your parents, your children, or your friends. It's the relationship you have with yourself. And if that relationship is based on constant self-criticism, rejection of your shadow aspects, and the relentless pursuit of impossible perfection, then all other relationships will be reflections of this internal disharmony. Start treating yourself as you would a beloved child. When you make a mistake, instead of emotionally flagellating yourself, offer yourself the understanding you would offer a good friend. When you feel fear or insecurity, instead of judging these feelings as signs of weakness, embrace them with the tenderness a loving mother offers a frightened child. Celebrate your small victories. Acknowledge your progress, however small. Forgive your stumbles with the same ease you would forgive a child learning to walk. Treat your body with reverence, knowing it's the sacred temple where your soul temporarily resides. Nourish your mind with thoughts that nurture, not destroy. The fourth revelation is that healing happens in layers and requires divine patience with yourself. You won't break free from emotional dependence overnight, Just as a tree doesn't grow in a single day, each moment of awareness, each time you choose to respond instead of react, each time you choose to love yourself instead of criticize yourself, is a seed of liberation being planted in the garden of your soul. There will be setbacks. There will be moments when you feel you've regressed, that all progress has been lost, that you're back where you started. But this is an illusion. Spiritual growth isn't a straight line, it's an upward spiral. Even when it seems you've returned to the same point, you're actually on a higher level of understanding. Eastern masters speak of the beginner's mind, that humble openness to learning that keeps us receptive to transformation. Each day is a new opportunity to practice self-love, to choose thoughts that uplift, to respond to challenges with wisdom instead of emotional reactivity. Casey frequently mentioned the importance of patience as one of the most important virtues on the spiritual path. Be patient with yourself, as you would be with a garden you're cultivating with love. You wouldn't rip a plant out by its roots, because it hasn't blossomed yet. You would continue watering, providing sunlight, removing weeds, trusting the natural process of growth. The fifth revelation is about the transformative power of forgiveness, not just forgiving the person you feel dependent on, but primarily forgiving yourself for developing these patterns. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or condoning behaviors that hurt you. Forgiveness means releasing the toxic weight of resentment you carry on your soul's shoulders. When you hold on to anger, hurt, or resentment, it's like holding a burning coal with the intention of throwing it at someone. You're the one who gets burned first. Forgiveness is the act of letting go of that coal, not out of kindness to the other person, but out of self-love, out of recognition that you deserve inner peace. Forgive yourself for trusting people who weren't worthy of your trust. Forgive yourself for getting lost in relationships that drained your energy. Forgive yourself for mistaking love for dependence, for outsourcing your happiness, for shrinking yourself to fit into others' expectations. Forgive yourself for temporarily forgetting who you truly are. And then, from the sacred space of this forgiveness, forgive those involved in your karmic dances of dependence. Forgive not because they deserve it, that's irrelevant, but because you deserve freedom. Forgive because every soul is doing the best they can with their current level of awareness. Forgive because in the grand theater of spiritual evolution, even the apparent villains are playing roles that serve collective growth. True forgiveness goes beyond words. It's an energetic transmutation that happens deep within your soul. When you truly forgive, it feels like a gigantic weight is lifted from your shoulders, like invisible chains are broken, like you can breathe for the first time in a long time. The sixth revelation is about the magic of gratitude as a tool for transformation. It may seem strange to feel grateful for experiences that brought suffering, but when you can see beyond appearances, you realize that even the most painful situations carried seeds of growth that couldn't have germinated otherwise. Be grateful for the emotional dependence, because it forced you to look inward and question limiting beliefs that might have remained dormant your whole life. Be grateful for the tears shed, because they washed away illusions that kept you trapped. Be grateful for the pain of a broken heart because it opened space for an even bigger heart, capable of loving in a more mature and unconditional way. Be grateful for the people who served as mirrors to your unhealthy patterns, even if they did so unconsciously or cruelly. They were involuntary instruments of your evolution, catalysts that accelerated growth processes that could have taken many lifetimes. Gratitude doesn't deny suffering, it transforms it into wisdom. It alchemizes pain into compassion, mistakes into learning, losses into opportunities to discover inner resources you didn't know you possessed. Gratitude is the key that transforms any experience, no matter how difficult, into fuel for your spiritual ascension. The seventh and most powerful revelation is that you are an infinite, eternal, divine being, temporarily having a human experience. You are not just this aging body, this sometimes confused mind, these emotions that oscillate like waves in the sea. You are the consciousness that observes all of this, the immutable presence that remains as a silent witness to all transformations. When you truly embody this truth, not just as a mental concept, but as a lived experience, emotional dependence loses all meaning. How can an infinite being depend on something finite? How can a drop of the divine ocean feel incomplete? How can a spark of the Creator beg for love from those who are equally divine sparks, but perhaps haven't yet awakened to this reality? This is ultimate freedom, recognizing your divine nature and living from that truth. When you know who you truly are, when you remember your cosmic origin, when you feel in every fiber of your being that you are unconditionally loved by the universe itself, the need to seek validation, approval, or completeness in other people simply dissolves. You continue to love, but now you love as the sun shines, naturally, effortlessly, without expecting anything in return. You continue to relate, but now you relate as two infinite oceans meeting, each complete in itself, creating something even more beautiful together, but without losing its individual identity. The path to liberation from emotional dependence is ultimately the path back home, not a physical house, but the home of your own divinity, the home of your soul, where you have always been complete, always been loved, always been free. You only temporarily forgot, like an actor who identified so much with the character that they forgot who they really are behind the mask. But now you are remembered, with each word that resonates true in your soul, each insight that illuminates the dark corners of your psyche, each moment of understanding that dissolves years of confusion. You are returning home, and when you finally get there, or rather, when you finally remember that you never left, you will discover that the love you sought so much on the outside has always been waiting patiently on the inside, like a treasure buried in the backyard of your own consciousness. This is the universe's promise to you. No matter how lost you have felt, no matter how dependent you have become, no matter how many lifetimes it may have taken to reach this moment of awakening, you can free yourself, you can heal yourself, you can remember who you truly are. And when that happens, when you finally possess yourself completely, when you are your own best friend, your own refuge of peace, your own source of unconditional love, something magical will happen. You will attract into your life people who also possess themselves completely. You will create relationships based on abundance, not scarcity. You will dance dances of mutual freedom, not golden cages. The universe conspires in favor of those who genuinely love themselves, because when you truly love yourself, you become a pure channel of cosmic love, a walking blessing for everyone who crosses your path. And what greater gift could you give the world than being completely, authentically, magnificently yourself? So, dear soul who's made it this far on this journey of self-discovery, as the final words echo in the sacred silence of your contemplation, I leave you with perhaps the most important question you'll ever ask yourself. If you could speak now with that future version of yourself, who has completely freed themselves from emotional dependence, who has discovered the infinite treasure of self-love, who has remembered their divine nature, what advice would that wise and free version of you give to you today?